It's time for the Splash Live from Civic Center TV, featuring stories from and about people like you in the greater West Bloomfield area. Simulcast on cable, 89.3 Lakes FM, social media, and the web. Now live from Green Media Center on Walnut Lake Road, it's the Splash Live.
Live, local, social, it's the Splash Live on Civic Center TV. Welcome, friends and neighbors. I'm Tyler Kieft. Thank you for joining us. Close to home, artists, crafters, and business owners from one of West Bloomfield's neighborhoods brought out their best to help locals support their neighbors and find incredible original works. Civic Center TV's Jake Schaff has more.
With Halloween officially in the rearview mirror, everybody is already starting to look ahead towards the remainder of the holiday season. And just in time, because the annual West Acres Craft Show took place right here in Greater West Bloomfield for several residents to stop by to check out some amazing booths and some amazing artists to find the perfect gift to take home to the family.
Oh, it's great. I have been here for about the last 6 years. I grew up in West Acres, so this is my neighborhood. I love to support this, and they've always had wonderful crafters here. The neighborhood supports the show very nicely.
It's very exciting. There are so many nice people. This is my first booth that I've done by myself, so I'm having a lot of fun, and I've sold a few things, so I love it. It's been great. I love watching people enjoy everybody's different way of expressing their art. So it's just fun watching people like what people do and have fun talking and see new people, see people that have been around the neighborhood. So that's been fun too.
So what have you seen from everybody here today checking out the West Acres Craft Show?
Well, the turnout is fantastic. The place is very crowded. Everyone seems to be having a good time, and the vendors are wonderful. There are some new vendors here that I hadn't seen in the past, and all of the work is just top-notch, and it's a very, very good environment and happy, and it's fun today. It's exciting.
All the great things that the West Acres Craft Show is doing, it's all going to an amazing cause, isn't that right?
Yes, it is. It goes to a charity every year. They choose a animal rescue, and it also goes to continue the programs here at West Acres.
This year's charity for the West Acres Craft Show was the Michigan Animal Rescue League, a nonprofit animal welfare providing the highest quality of life to dogs and cats through rescue, medical care, and sanctuary.
I think it's so important that the community still do local programs like this, especially with everything happening in the world. Everyone has a lot of things going on, and this brings a community together, and you do get to see the wonderful artwork that some of the local artisans do that we wouldn't know about if they didn't have programs like this.
Yeah, it's really good to see the local stuff being done too and being showcased. You know, you got everyone from woodworkers like me to people are knitting, crocheting, and jewelry designers, and all kinds of different things. Just that there's so much local talent. I mean, if you look around, there's so many things there. So people are so talented doing different things that they love and enjoy.
I hope that when they come and see me, I have return customers because you're never going to see the same design. So when you come back, I'm not going to have the same thing that I did the previous year. So I'm hoping that you're wearing a one-of-a-kind piece that doesn't look commercial and that is unique, that nobody else is wearing.
This event means so much to the community and even more so for the artists taking part in it. And I hope everybody was able to take away something special with them today, whether that be a memento or a memory. For Civic Center TV, I'm Jake Schaff.
More information is available on their website, westacrescraftshow.com. Take a look at it, find out more about the history of the West Acres Craft Show. And, of course, that's a place to go to stay tuned for dates coming up in the future. Next year going to be a big year again for that annual event. The West Bloomfield Lakers varsity football season has officially come to a close following a 7-25 loss at home last week Friday against the Brighton Bulldogs in the opening round of the MHSAA Division I football playoffs. Here with more about a game of short-lived ups and very hard-hitting downs, as well as a mostly successful season overall for the Lake Show, is our Laker football color analyst, Matt Catoni. Matt, thanks for being here.
Yep, thank you for having me.
Glad to have you on to talk about Laker football. Not so glad that it's the final time we'll be doing that for this regular season and playoff campaign. A short-lived playoff campaign for the West Bloomfield Lakers. All the work that went into getting that first home game didn't quite go their way, and the calling card of that competition really was the defensive attack from the Bulldogs.
Yeah, and it was a really close game in the first half. The Bulldogs scoring a touchdown with 11 seconds left to take the 10-7 lead into half. For the most part, the Lakers defense was equally as stout as the Bulldogs defense, but missing Travis Robertson, the Lakers really couldn't get anything going.
Yeah, and it was tough with the size of that defensive front, the line especially from the Brighton Bulldogs, but really that entire front seven, the scheme they put together, not having a guy that's 6'6", nearly 300 pounds, Big Ten bound with a lower leg injury in Travis Robertson, had a major impact on that Lakers team. And it seemed like as much as the Lakers offense had that boom potential all throughout the season, those big 50-plus yard runs, certainly those 50 to 60-yard touchdown passes that we saw so often, usually Carver to Willie Edwards all throughout the season, just wasn't there. From all three levels, the Brighton Bulldogs brought their A game on Friday on the defensive side.
Yeah, and the Lakers were able to get some opportunities, but the Brighton Bulldogs were able to just clasp on them right away. The Lakers in the third quarter had an opportunity to get back into the game when it's 16-7, but the Bulldogs are able to get them off the field on a 4th and 3. And that's really kind of the pivotal point in the game, because from then on, the Bulldogs just ran away from it, or with it.
And looking through the stats from this season, 123 yards on the ground, one of the fewest rushing yards for the entire season of the Lakers, looking back to week 4 at 128. Really the only other week that even comes close to rivaling how few rushing yards West Bloomfield had, a team that had been content for many weeks out of this season to run for over 200 yards. The running game shut down, and for West Bloomfield, the way that secondary was playing for the Brighton Bulldogs, without having their calling card of versatility on the offensive side, that was the magic elixir for Brighton to shut down this West Bloomfield offensive attack.
Yeah, it was kind of a nightmare scenario for the Lakers. They struggled to get the passing game going throughout the season, really. They showed some life last week, but then losing Travis Robertson, it kind of forced them to lean on a weakness this week as they weren't able to get the run game going, and it showed.
And one thing that was disrupted was the ability for Jackson Carver to make sound decisions after going through full progressions. Now, mind you, this has been a player, a junior quarterback for the Lakers, his first season as a starter on the varsity level, really his first season on the varsity level altogether, as he was injured as a sophomore third stringer last year in 2024. He, throughout the year, had shown a lot of poise in the backfield, especially under pressure, but Brighton was able to really bring that quickly and aggressively and maintain that pursuit because of how stout they were at all three levels. That definitely disrupted the passing game for West Bloomfield, too.
Yeah, as much as it disrupts the run game not having Robertson, it equally disrupts the passing game and makes life that much more hectic for a young quarterback, first-year starter in Jackson Carver. And that's really, the unfortunate aspect of this playoff game that the Lakers are going to be looking at if they had Travis Robertson, because it really was a phenomenal season for this team. But Travis Robertson was probably the best player on the offense this year, and not having him for this playoff game was huge.
No Lakers had over 21 yards receiving on Friday night. This is a team that has consistently had at least one guy that's having a breakout game and a bunch of other players that were at least in double figures yardage-wise in the receiving corps. 79 yards passing in total for the Lakers on Friday night. That being said, still relatively efficient. Jackson Carver, 6 for 14 for 76 yards. Unfortunately, two interceptions involved in that. Jackson Carver mostly taking the offensive reps at quarterback. Jamal Shakespeare, 3 attempts at quarterback, 1 completion for only 3 yards. Really was a tale of a defensive performance for the Brighton Bulldogs. So, with all that being the case, West Bloomfield eliminated from the playoffs in the pre-district round. That finishes them 1 week sooner than they finished in 2024 when they advanced to the district finals and lost to Catholic Central. Brighton will face the Shamrocks at Detroit Catholic Central on Friday this week for the district championship. So looking back on the Lakers season, they finished with 3 losses. That's the same number of losses they had 2 years ago when they made it all the way to the state semifinals, losing to the eventual champions in Southfield A&T. And while they're graduating 22 seniors, Matt, as you look toward the future, it looks pretty bright for this Lakers team that had a lot of those juniors and underclassmen be able to step into starting roles, to heavy reps roles, and show out in this season. Lots of promise going into 2026.
Yeah, especially on the defensive side of the ball and the defensive line. I mean, one guy that comes to mind is Jamar Ray. He was phenomenal towards the end of the year, and he did not just a great job setting the edge, but just, winning his one-on-ones and just getting off the ball so fast that opposing tackles didn't have a chance to stop him.
And let's not also discount the secondary coming back next year. Yes, they're going to lose Will Espy and Jamal Shakespeare, so their safeties are going to be going away. They're going to have to replace that production. They've been able to replicate that throughout their JV and freshman programs coming up year in and year out. This seems to be a place that even in recent years, with departures of people like Coach Dickerson, who's a renowned defensive backs coach across the U.S., still having Coach Cam and others in place to coach these defensive backs and that secondary has done wonders for this team. And they're bringing back 2 rock-solid cornerbacks in Christian Banks and Bryce Tillman-Jones next year. That's going to be huge for them, especially as some of these other, particularly OAA Red Division teams, start to lose some of their crop of receivers and those electric, lightning-in-a-bottle quarterbacks.
Yeah, and really those 2 corners you named were phenomenal. Again, a lot like Ray at the end of the season. They got better as the weeks went on and they got more playing time. So going into next year, you have really 3 cornerstones for this defense that are going to give you the opportunity to make plays and get your hands on the football and put the offense in good positions.
Yeah, Josh Forrest also coming back next season, a defensive back who had a great season for West Bloomfield. Iman Lewis at linebacker picked it up also. You mentioned Jamar Ray. He had a big season, particularly that second half, really stepped into his role. Could be that next in line behind guys like Brandon Davis-Swain, guys like Mike Williams at the defensive edge, having a huge impact. And follow up Jeremiah Benson, who had a fantastic career at West Bloomfield High School. But the cornerstone of that defensive line going into next year has to be Tristan Hunter.
Yeah, I mean, they have a lot. They're going to continue to have a lot of size on that defensive line, and that's going to be the biggest thing. That's and the secondary is going to be the biggest beneficiary of their defensive front. Having a guy like Tristan Hunter, who we saw 2 weeks ago get his hand on the football 3 times in the passing games, almost causing turnovers, whether it being a fumble or an interception. But having 2 guys, one on the inside, one on the outside, and Ray, that is going to be an immense advantage for the Lakers going into next year.
And other players like Bryce Chandler also coming back next year. One of those players that's going to be playing probably mostly at safety because of his size, his ability in the defensive front. You can put him at a linebacker position. You can put him at that nickel corner. You can put him at the safety position. He's so versatile, and he's had some big games also this year. So defense looking really good. And you can't discount the offensive side either, bringing back a few key players on the offensive line, but especially having a second year of Jackson Carver, who's going to be ever motivated after a not so fantastic last few weeks of the season with those 5 interceptions, where otherwise throughout this entire season, regular season and playoffs, outside of those interceptions, virtually flawless.
Yeah, and having Shannon Roshan back next year as well, that's going to be kind of the connection I feel like the Lakers are going to go to a lot. We saw Roshan kind of get on the field more the second half of the season, not just necessarily making plays with the football in his hands, but just getting open and getting targets more than really any other full-blown receiver in this offense had all year. And that's going to be something to see how the Lakers expand upon going into next season.
Yeah, Keegan Hickey likely to be one of those guys that will take on a bigger role in the backfield, and we'll probably see Cameron Hall be a little bit more of a fusion between running back and wide receiver next year as he was mostly in those jet sweeps. Maybe they'll put him more as that Will Espy speed back next season, although Espy a little bit larger in stature at this particular time than Cameron Hall, with about a let's say, looking at the roster, a slight difference in size going into next season, about 30 pounds. That being said, sophomore for Cam Hall, going to put on that size over the summer, going to get back to work, and he had a fantastic year also. Could be another key player for this West Bloomfield Lakers team. That being said, 22 seniors is a big loss for this team. So as you're looking toward next season, as these players now get a little bit of an earlier start to their off-season training than they maybe perhaps were anticipating, what are some of those keys you're looking for them to really hone in on over the winter, the spring, and the summer to come back next fall and maybe take over the OAA Red, with many other teams also having an exodus of senior leadership?
Really, the weight room and the film room are really the two most important things that come to mind. The weight room is really where your team is built in the off season, and if they're able to just maintain that physical mindset and keep on working towards that, we saw how just one off season of focusing on that paid off this year. It'd be interesting to see if they continue that mindset in the weight room.
Yeah, definitely going to be an interesting offseason for the Lakers, see what happens on their front coming into next year and who's going to take that big step forward. We saw some of those players make those big impacts in 2025, sprung the Lakers back from being a team that lost 6 games in total last season, one of those, of course, being a playoff game, and had a 2-game improvement overall in the regular season in 2025. Matt, as we look back on these past 10 weeks of Laker football, one extra than was originally given to this team at the beginning of the season with their playoff campaign, what do you believe is the underlying story of the West Bloomfield Lakers football team of 2025?
Well, I feel like it's a kind of a case of what if, because again, like I said, if they have Travis Robertson, that game on Friday goes very differently, and it's just a very unfortunate circumstance for this team because, health isn't something you can guarantee in this sport. And I feel like that's just the biggest theme is what if they had Travis Robertson? Because this team was so talented when they got to the perimeter and those ball carriers. Who knows what could have happened if they won?
Yeah, always going to be those big questions. What if, again, on the line for the West Bloomfield. Game is won and lost often in the trenches at any level of football. Definitely going to be one of those things you think about if you're a Laker faithful for years to come, much like you did a couple years ago with that late game injury to Brandon Davis-Swain in the semifinal. Matt, appreciate you being here with us today and had a fun time calling the games with you all throughout the fall. We'll hopefully see you soon.
Yep, likewise, and thank you for having me.
Appreciate it. For more information on the West Bloomfield Lakers varsity football team and to see all of our coverage from all throughout the season, you want to watch back all those games, you missed anything, you want to see old episodes of This Week in Laker Football, or just take a look at how the season progressed, we're going to leave all that information up there for you on our Laker Sports page. CivicCenterTV.com/LakerSports is the place to go for all of that information. Artificial intelligence is making its way into everyday life, whether it's you looking for quick answers from bots like ChatGPT or computer models trying to predict the Lions game results so you can have interesting conversations with maybe some fans that are Packer faithful or Viking faithful in the weeks to come, or even those scammers trying to weasel their way into your personal information. With new technology, that means you need new learning strategies to keep your personal information safe. Here with more insight on this is West Bloomfield Police Detective Phil Pacheco. Detective Pacheco, thanks for joining us today.
Hey, good morning.
Glad to have you on to talk about this. Good morning to you as well. It's an important topic, certainly on the minds of a lot of people in our community as AI becomes more ubiquitous from a technological standpoint with everyday people in our community. It also becomes even more advanced with scammers. At this time, what are some of the key points people need to be looking out for? What are some of the ways that scammers are using AI to target everyday people here in Greater West Bloomfield and beyond?
What we've seen recently over the past couple of years is that, really the most vulnerable people in our community, which those are, the elderly. We do have a large elderly population. They can be very easily fooled by this. So one thing that we're seeing that's being used by criminals to, scam the elderly or trick them is they'll receive a phone call and they are so adamant that this sounded just like my grandson, my son, my daughter, whoever. This sounded just like them, and they needed help. They needed money. I needed to bond them out of jail. And we've had our residents here lose close to $100,000 and everything in between because they do fall victim to this.
And so what are some of those key ways that people can tell the difference between this is really my son, my daughter, my grandchild, a close friend, whomever it may be in their life, versus someone using technology to spoof a very similar way of speaking?
Well, I think it starts with, if you do have a elderly family member, it just starts with education. And I think the easiest thing that you can do and implement is some kind of like safe word, like a code word. But first educating them on like this extremely urgent phone call that they may get when, hey, I need money right now, this needs to happen. Being able to recognize that is step one, like that's a little off. And then step two would be, okay, what is the code word for this? And it could be anything unique to your family. And, obviously if it is your family, they're going to know that code word. If it's not, then you know that you're, likely being attempted to be victimized at that time.
And these are scams that are just starting to be more on the rise, more commonplace across many communities. They target people that are typically in elder populations, may not be as technologically savvy, and may not have the media literacy that others in younger populations have. But that doesn't mean that people in younger demographics aren't also susceptible to this. Detective Pacheco, usually that manifests itself in the way of misinformation or disinformation, especially on social media. What are some of the common ways that is manifested nowadays?
With the ability to take somebody's face, like we all love posting pictures of our family, our children, things that we do that we share with the people that we know and love on social media. But the technology exists to take that person's face and use it in a criminal way. It could be for extortion. It could be for very other horrible activities, especially when it comes to a minor or a child. So you just need to be careful what you're putting out there. And I think educating yourself on what somebody can do, with your face, with your voice, things like that is step one for every family. You need to talk about this as a family because it is real and it is happening.
And it goes back to some of those privacy settings that you really want to be mindful of. Who you're also bringing into some of these social media can also play a big impact in that. Do you know this person? Do they look familiar to you? If not, probably shouldn't have access to your information, especially now with the advent of AI, and it's certainly going to get a lot more advanced as time goes on. Detective Phil Pacheco is with us from the West Bloomfield Police Department. More helpful advice and safety information from our local PD can be found on Facebook at West Bloomfield PD. Detective Pacheco, from the law enforcement standpoint, what new maybe training methods are being brought in or may be employed soon for our local departments like yours to help also counteract some of these negative effects that AI may be having on communities like West Bloomfield?
It's funny, I was just looking at that today, like, hey, what's available? Companies are putting this training out for law enforcement. Really, what I found was how law enforcement can use AI to, for administrative purposes or even down to report writing to make the job easier, which, agree with it or not, it's there, it's happening. I think that, I guess to answer your question, I'm not really aware of any training that exists right now or that I've seen recently that would, give us some kind of investigative tools to investigate this better. I think that we here at this police department and the investigators that we have here in the detective bureau, we're all pretty aware of how this stuff works. We're younger, we grew up with this, we know kind of what the future holds for AI. And so I'm going to keep an eye out, but yeah, I don't know of anything right now.
Yeah, still early on with this becoming more easily accessible for people across all different sectors, whether it be businesses, whether it be everyday citizens like you and I, or it be these scammers that tend to be a little bit more on the cutting edge of these technologies and figure out how to do some of these scams early on before law enforcement and everybody else catches up to them, and then it all evens out relatively quickly. Detective Pacheco, with all of that being said, if someone does believe that they've taken your advice from today or other advice that they found about counteracting some of these scams that may arise or misinformation campaigns that may arise with the advent of more advanced AI, should they believe that they've fallen victim to that or they've been targeted by AI, what steps can they take with their local police department to report that and maybe begin some sort of investigation into who may be behind it?
A lot of times with these cases, time is of the essence. You have to report it immediately. A lot of people, start off with like, I'm really sorry to bother you with this, this has happened to me. But at the end of the day, we're here to serve the public. If it's important to you, it's important to us. And we want to help you. That's why we exist. And you need to report, anything to us right away. If you think you're being victimized or anything like that, please do it right away. Because in a lot of these situations, especially as it pertains to money and the different forms that we've seen people here in West Bloomfield send that money, time is of the essence. You need to report it to us right away so that we can start the investigation and hopefully maybe seize the funds and try to get those back to you to make you whole as part of the investigation. Certainly, we don't exist just to recover your money. At the end of the day, we'd like to get somebody criminally charged for what they've done to you. But again, report it to us right away. If your family member is elderly, it's awesome if you can bring them in and help explain kind of what happened so that we can get on it right away.
More information on West Bloomfield PD on Facebook. You can also go to wbtownship.org and contact the police department by their non-emergency number if you need additional advice on this or other matters that may affect you here in the greater West Bloomfield area. Detective Pacheco, thank you so much for your time today.
Thank you, sir. Have a good one.
You as well. Again, more advice and safety information, whether it's regarding rising technologies like AI affecting you in this community by way of potential scammers going after your information, or even just everyday safety advice, road closures, accidents, how weather may impact the roads and other services in Greater West Bloomfield. Emergency information available, of course, through us here at Civic Center TV and 89.3 Lakes FM as the future goes on. But you can also find that advice especially handily available to you on Facebook at West Bloomfield PD for more information. And once again, want to remind you, if you have those individual questions, you can get those answered from the police department. We just encourage you to use their non-emergency number, wbtownship.org. Scroll over under their departments, scroll down, go to their police department page. The non-emergency number will be listed right there for your information. And of course, if there is an immediate emergency, call 911. Tomorrow, the Greater West Bloomfield community will recognize its greatest heroes, its veterans, at the annual Heroes Appreciation Breakfast, which will be broadcast live right here on Civic Center TV with special coverage beforehand with Thais Leverett and I. Headlining the show with lots of laughs as well as a strong message about our veterans will be Detroit radio legend Big Al Muskowitz. I had a chance to speak with Big Al about his dedication to our local veteran community and as well to get a preview of his appearance at the big event. Big Al, thanks for joining us today.
How are you? I don't look as good on TV as you do.
Well, hey, you know what? People will tell me all the time I don't look so good on TV either, but here I am still doing the show today with you as we celebrate the heroes of our community. Big Al, this is a big event here in Greater West Bloomfield every single year to celebrate the veterans in our community and even nearby areas that join us at this event. As you come in this year as the Master of Ceremonies, what does a celebration like this mean to you personally?
Well, thanks, Tyler. Pardon me. It means a great deal to me, and I'm just a very teeny-weeny small part of it. I've been given the honor of emceeing the event and introducing folks throughout the program. But it's especially near and dear to me because of my affiliation with the Jewish War Veterans Department of Michigan. I'm a patron I've been supporting, servicemen and women for many years throughout my career. And I can never say enough about folks who make these kind of sacrifices on our behalf. So to be a small part to, wish them well and to show how much we appreciate them, especially as the community of West Bloomfield comes together to do that. So it means a great deal to me.
And we know that in the past you have participated in several different events to celebrate our veterans here in the Detroit area. It's something that you do hold important to you. So how did your involvement in this particular event come about?
Well, it really mainly through my involvement with the Jewish War Veterans Department of Michigan. A couple of those folks risked their credibility, I think, and passed my name along as a possible person to MC it. So I'm grateful to the Jewish War Vets because I really am looking forward to it. So it was really through that organization. But as you mentioned, I've been involved in many different activities throughout the years involving, our servicemen and women. Particularly, we have people should be made aware of the Michigan World War II Legacy Memorial that's in Royal Oak on Woodward near 13 Mile is a grand opening of their phase 2 of this Veterans Day. So I've been active on those fronts, and so it's nothing new to me, but it's something I'd love to be a participant in.
And we've mostly in the past, through our local media here in the Detroit area, heard you alongside people like Dick Purton making people laugh, talking about what's in the news and of conversation in the community on any particular day. This is a little bit different of an opportunity because what's great about you is you're able to entertain an audience with some humor, but also incorporate the really important elements of what it means to serve your country and what that means to people in the community like you and I. So as you approach being the MC of this year's Heroes Appreciation Breakfast, how do you mix a little bit of the humor and the somber undertones? Because the people in that room are the veterans that endured, and we can't forget about those that lost their lives along the way.
No, I couldn't have said it better myself, Tyler. You hit the nail on the head. What I do when I do events like this, because I've done my share of events that are fundraisers for cancer research or many other medical maladies that you have to bring a serious tone to an evening. What I enjoy, coming from my background working on the Dick Purton Show, is that I pick and choose the right moment to maybe add a brief moment of levity. And I'm still learning how to look at a camera on Zoom, so forgive me if my head's bobbing around a lot. I'll pick and choose those moments and keep them very brief, but I find it's a nice icebreaker for folks. So it's good to be, in the same room and honoring the subject matter that we're honoring. But at the same time, I like to make people feel comfortable and engaged, and that often happens through humor.
And it's important, too, that we recognize those that have gone into the service. People go into the military for a number of different reasons, but one thing that's common among all of them is that they are serving our country and they're providing us with the freedoms we have each and every day. And so we celebrate them on a few different days throughout the year. 4th of July, of course, Veterans Day, which is coming up. And then others like Memorial Day, we recognize those that made the ultimate sacrifice. But as we celebrate those dates and we have gatherings like this that are specifically tailored to those veterans in our community and us serving them in this small but not minuscule way, why is it important that we have these kinds of gatherings that do focus entirely on those that served?
Well, yeah, there can't be enough days in the year to honor these folks. And one thing that usually these days are reserved for mattress sales and buying washers and dryers, like July 4th, Memorial Day, Veterans Day sales. And that's well and good, but it's important to keep the message of our servicemen and women, our veterans who have served, who continue to serve, keeping them uppermost in our minds and honoring them every day. These events are great because they singularly highlight what they do and how grateful we are to them. It's a message that should be carried out with everybody throughout their day, throughout their year, and especially in the times we're living in right now. It's as important as ever. So yes, these days are really important, but they go beyond just having a sale for a store or something. We have to remember the deep, deep meaning behind these celebrations.
The Greater West Bloomfield Heroes Appreciation Breakfast is the morning of Tuesday, November 4th at West Bloomfield Middle School. For more information on the event, if you still want to attend, there may be some opportunity to do so. wbparks.org/heroes is the place to go for that information. On the day of, doors open about 8:30 that morning to welcome everybody in, give them a good meal before the big show. And our coverage will begin live on Civic Center TV and online on civiccentertv.com right around 8:30, 8:45, with the show beginning about 9:25 proper as they go through each and every part of the annual ceremony. Big Al Muskovitz is with us on the Splash Live. He'll be the master of ceremonies for this year's event. Big Al, we're a little bit about a week away, just under, from the event as we're talking today live on the show. Any plans already you can reveal to us of some of what you're going to bring to your hosting on Tuesday next week?
Nothing. I have no idea. No, I often, the closer I get to an event is when this starts kicking in and I start thinking what I can do. I learn more about the event. I think about, my involvement in the community. I think about, as a journalist, writing a lot about veterans. It all kind of comes together the closer I get. So a week out, it's starting to circulate in my brain. But as we get closer, I start to feel the emotion and the gravity of the moment, of which I'm given a great privilege to do. And that's when it'll start to kick in. So that was a long answer saying that I don't have much to say, other than I will tell people I'm a patron of the Jewish War Veterans Department of Michigan, but my military career ended when I was a 6th grade crossing guard at Glen Shanos Elementary School in Southfield. So I was never in the military. People say, thank you for your service, because they know I'm identified with the Department of Michigan, but my military service doesn't go too far.
Being part of the crossing guard team, very important element of being in school. So your service did mean something there. Not quite the military service. We're going to celebrate the important ones.
I could tell you stories. I could tell you stories of the crossing guard. It's unbelievable.
The jaywalkers had to be terrible. Big Al Muskovitz with us on the Splash Live today. And it's an interesting dynamic, too, as you're preparing for that, because you can only prepare so much before you get on that stage in front of a group full of people who have been all over the world, have served in many different conflicts or at many different bases, or have seen a lot of what it actually means day by day to serve our country. And so there's that natural feeling of wanting to have a little bit of that raw emotion of being in that moment play into it. But ultimately, when those veterans leave on Tuesday morning at the end of that entire event, what is your hope that they feel in their hearts as they walk out of West Bloomfield Middle School?
Well, I hope that if even just a small percentage of the folks that witness it, maybe they'll do something more in the future that they hadn't considered before. Maybe it's a donation to a certain organization regarding the military. Maybe it's getting to more Memorial Day functions or Veterans Day functions. It's, maybe just participating a little more and carrying that message through the community, because, there's hardcore people who are involved in it all the time, but ultimately you need our community to come together and remember. And so that's important. Some of the stories I've been able to cover over the years have been absolutely dramatic about veterans who have survived wars and some who have not. And I carry those with me every day. As a matter of fact, I have a story coming out soon of a World War II veteran his remains were just identified 80 years later. So he was just remembered at a funeral. So it's pretty stunning that how far back these stories go and how much in the future they're going to mean to people. So it's important that the community come together on this as much as they can.
And getting all those people that have served across these generations in the same room to share some of those stories, share some of that camaraderie, and see that they have a community here in our local area. Also a very important element of that. Big Al, before we let you go, any other message you want to provide to our audience here in Greater West Bloomfield as we prepare to celebrate our veterans on Tuesday, November 4th?
I think it's just, you've set the table very well. I think it's just about remembering and taking it beyond that particular function or day that you're involved in. More things get done, the more active we are. And I think if anything, the world we're living in today requires activity and involvement. And so this is just a small part of it, and maybe it can extend to other things in your life that you're participating and giving back to. I think that's just the message of giving back as much as you can, in this case, to our incredible veterans who we owe a great debt of gratitude to.
And it's always something that they leave proud to have served our country, and also with so much pride in what the community does, celebrating them each and every year. Big Al, thanks for joining us today.
It didn't hurt that they told me there'd be a free breakfast, so I have to admit it. I'll go online and say that.
Hey,
but
pretty
thanks,
big
Tyler.
attraction.
It was really a joy to talk to you. Great questions. I appreciate it.
Great to talk with Big Al, and looking forward to seeing him Tuesday morning at the Heroes Appreciation Breakfast. You can view the full live event on Tuesday on CivicCenterTV.com. We'll leave a link for you at the top of the page, and you'll also be able to find the full presentation live and on demand on our Facebook page as well as our YouTube page as well. Facebook at Civic Center TV 15 and YouTube at Civic Center TV. In addition to Heroes Day, Tuesday is also Election Day in Greater West Bloomfield, but not everyone is eligible to vote in this particular set of elections, and those who are may have different itinerary involved in their trip from home or work over to the polls. I was recently joined by West Bloomfield Township Clerk Debbie Binder to learn more. Clerk Binder, thank you as always for coming on the show.
My pleasure. Good morning, Tyler. Good to see you today.
Yeah, good to see you as well, as we're approaching Election Day in Greater West Bloomfield. Like many of the pop-up elections between the midterms and certainly in between presidential elections, not expected to be the most popular of votes out there for this time of the year. But it's really important that people understand that there are elections in place and that not everybody in West Bloomfield Township is actually eligible to vote in those elections. Clarify why that is the case for us.
Okay, so I know I always say the same thing, that we have 7 school districts within West Bloomfield Township jurisdiction, and 3 of our school districts have an election right now, as well as the people who live in the proposed village of Zacks, who have they will be electing their proposed charter commission. So those are the only people who have a precinct. So I actually had someone say to me last night that their son got a ballot and they didn't. And they were in the Walled Lake School District, who does not have an election, and the other was in the West Bloomfield School District, who does. So only voters in West Bloomfield who reside in the West Bloomfield School District, the Bloomfield Hill School District, and the Pontiac School District will have an election, as well as the people who are in the proposed village, which is currently Zacks. But all of those do reside in the West Bloomfield School District, so they will have an election. But voters who reside in any of our other school districts, Walled Lake, which is a large one, Farmington, Birmingham, or Waterford, will not have an election at this point. So when they see signs on Tuesday and they worry that they missed something, don't worry, you don't have an election. I will say we do anticipate perhaps a little bit larger turnout, because one big change since in previous years is that permanent ballot. So there are a lot of people, almost half of our voters have signed up to be on the permanent ballot list, meaning they will get a ballot in the mail for every election they're eligible to vote in, including this one. So everyone who meets those conditions will get a ballot that signed up. So I do think we will see perhaps an increase in voter turnout. And an election of this size typically is one that everyone who participates, or not, I shouldn't say everyone, that's probably too strong of a word, but the majority, I think it's been up to 91%, will participate through absentee voting.
And between redistricting and then, of course, the recent changes that have been made to precincts in West Bloomfield, reducing the overall number, how might that, particularly the changing of the precincts, potentially have an impact on this set of elections?
I think we won't see a big impact on this set of elections, other than voters who may not have received, they should have received their voter ID card, or just maybe aren't aware and go to their previous polling locations. We did try to keep most of them the same. And what we did was consolidate precincts. The law had changed that allowed the precinct sizes to go from a maximum of 2,999 registered voters up to 4,999 registered voters. Reason for that is we have seen a tremendous shift in voter habits as we've had more opportunities and options to vote, like early voting and absentee voting, and no reason absentee voting. You've seen more voters switch their habit toward those, and fewer voters are actually going to their precincts on election day. We did wait. The law came into effect in 22. We didn't implement the changes until after we saw what the 24 election turnout was and had the metrics from that to look at. But that confirmed when we saw, and literally these numbers are as round as they sound, 50% of our voters voted by absentee, 20% voted in early voting, and 30% voted in the precinct. So in looking at the number of voters that are coming into the precinct on election day, laws were changed in 22 to allow those precinct sizes to be made up of more voters and consolidate precincts, which is what we did. So you will see this election, so this will be the first election that we have gone from 26 precincts down to 20 precincts. And we did, almost everyone will have a new precinct number. Most will stay in their same polling location. So even if they don't know that they have a new precinct number, they should end up at their normal polling location. But that is not the case for everybody. So I do see that habit change will take, could take one election of going to the wrong location. But again, I go back to that we've seen, up to 80-90% that have voted absentee for a small election like this. So I think that this will be consistent, and we have done a good job of getting the word out that people have a new polling location, and everybody in the township did receive a new voter identification card.
Tuesday, November 4th is Election Day in Greater West Bloomfield. Only in select cases, as was mentioned earlier on, a couple of the school districts in our local area have some ballot proposals, and then those in the Zox neighborhood in West Bloomfield will be voting on their charter commission as they attempt to become a village within West Bloomfield Township. More info on that and the election can be found on wbtownship.org, or of course you can follow the township on their Facebook and Instagram pages, both of those at the handle at West Bloomfield, at WB Township on Facebook and on Instagram at WB Township for more information. Clerk Binder, with all these changes recently and with the specifics of this particular election, how has your office been working to ensure transparency and proper communication to the community so that people know if they are potentially eligible to vote in this election, and that those key changes that maybe affect them this election, maybe affect them the next one, are communicated properly and they understand where they're supposed to be and what they may need to do for future elections?
Well, I go back again, Tyler, to the statute lays out very clearly what the obligation of the clerk's office are, and those ensure and guarantee transparency. So every single voter in West Bloomfield with the consolidated precincts will have received a new voter identification card. And then we also send out applications to those who are on the permanent application list, not on the permanent ballot list, that allows them to check a box to literally request to be on the permanent ballot list. We do need to have a signature to put somebody on the permanent ballot list. So that application becomes one of the vehicles with which they can request to be on it. And we have gone up, I would say, since I came in originally from a permanent application list, I believe it was about 6,000. We're up to 23,000 that are now participating on the permanent ballot list. So we have seen that word getting out very well. I do think, though, that there will be, every election we do have some confusion about it. I drove by and I saw signs, but I didn't know I was voting. So we do anticipate that, and my staff is beyond friendly, and when we get those phone calls, they field them nicely. But everybody has been notified, and everybody has had the opportunity to join that permanent ballot list probably for the last 2-3 years. They have received that as part of their application. So we do our best when they come to the counter. We also make them aware of their options, and I do think that it does take one cycle sometimes for voters to get into the new groove, so to speak. But I do think that we do a good job getting the word out there. And in a large election, we usually do take out an ad in the paper as well, just to remind people of changes. But I would say that if there's any question, there's a couple ways to check. You can call the clerk's office at 248-451-4848. Again, it's 248-451-4848. Or you can go to the Michigan Voter Information Center through the Secretary of State, which is either easiest way is michigan.gov/vote. Michigan.gov/vote, and voters can check all of their information through basically through the database. But what is important, as I mentioned, the Voter Information Center, today is the last day to register by mail or online. So if somebody does want to register for this election, and they want to do it without coming to the clerk's office, they want to be online or by mail. Today is the last day. After today, the only way to register will be in person at the clerk's office with residency verification. So they can still register that way up through 8 p.m. on election day. You would need to come, though, after today to the clerk's office in person with residency verification. People who wish to obtain an absentee ballot can do so up to 4 p.m. the Monday night before the election. People who register on the day of the election can also get an absentee ballot on election day. They would have a choice if they want to vote by absentee ballot or they want to go to their precinct. Typically, when they register on that same day, they are excited to go to the precinct and have that experience voting. But we do, as it gets later in the day, we will kind of suggest if they can't make it to their precinct in time, that they may want to choose to vote absentee ballot. But everybody who is not a same-day registrant does have to request their absentee ballot by 4 p.m. the Monday before the election. And the 4 p.m. is a hard stop. It's a statutory stop. So even though the township's open till 4:30, we can't hand out a ballot after 4 p.m. statutorily.
And just for clarification, if you are watching this segment after Monday, October 20th, that's when this has been live on the Splash proper. After Monday, October 20th, if you're seeing this segment, whether it's online or on one of our live shows being replayed and repurposed, you have to register now at that point at the clerk's office to vote in this election with residency verification at the clerk's office by 8 p.m. on election day, or as Clerk Binder said, for an absentee ballot by 4 p.m. on Monday, November 3rd. That is a hard deadline, Monday, November 3rd, 4 p.m. for absentee ballots. That being said, early voting still an option for those that are registered. Debbie, what do voters need to know about early voting for this election in Greater West Bloomfield?
Absolutely, it's a great point. And so early voting will be available beginning, I have it on Saturday, the second Saturday before the election. So it is October 25th through November 2nd. It is at the West Bloomfield Library, the main library, and it begins on Saturday. It goes Saturday, Sunday, Monday through Friday, and then Saturday and Sunday. It is from 8:30 to 4:30 p.m. daily, except on Thursday when it's from noon to 8. And for those who may not be aware, you can actually bring your absentee ballot with you to early voting and put it through the tabulator yourself. So those who want to kind of mix the experience of having their permanent absentee ballot but still feeding it through the tabulator themselves, you may do that by either taking your ballot with you to the early voting center or to your precinct on election day. So, lots of opportunities to cast that ballot. So keep that in mind. Early voting is a nice alternative. I know we may have some people that, in November of 24, the lines were very long for early voting the entire time. We do know that. It was, countywide. And I do anticipate in a large presidential election, we will continue to see that the lines on early voting are long. But I can assure you for this election, the lines won't be long. And my guess is for most of the elections in between the presidential elections, the lines won't be long like that. So, I still would, urge people to consider early voting as a great option. It really meets a need for people. As everything has gotten different, people are traveling more for work. They may work a swing shift. Whatever the reason is, if they have a vacation planned, or, we had absentee voting, but now early voting really gives them an option for somebody who wants to cast their ballot in person to go to their polling location and cast their ballot and still accommodate their work schedule or their vacation schedule. So it's very convenient. And I know in a small election like this, the staff that's working it will be very happy to see people who come in because I think they get a little bored. So I would urge people that this might be a good election to try it, and try bringing your absentee ballot with you. You can use that and put in and feed it through the tabulator. They will convert it to an election day ballot when you go into the early voting center, but it's easy. You can bring it in, vote it. They're going to record that, and you get to put it through the tabulator yourself. So it's a great opportunity.
And plenty of opportunities to do that. It's not just the weekends before the election leading up to it. It's also each and every day during the week during that also. Civic the civiccentertv.com will have more information on that will direct you to the clerk's office's website. And you can also follow the township for more information on elections and more all across social media, Facebook and Instagram at WB Township. Clerk Binder, another big story in the greater West Bloomfield area right now. Fire Station number 1 renovation is underway there. A very big project and a big moment for West Bloomfield Township as it's yet another big investment into public safety, this time on the fire department side. How excited are you and the other leaders at Town Hall for this project to get underway and bring that fire station really in one of the more central parts of our community in West Bloomfield Township and in the greater area proper into the 21st century, into 2025 with a practically brand new state-of-the-art facility?
So I am excited to see it. Obviously, it is a flagship on Orchard Lake Road, but it's a big investment. So just updating a flagship is certainly not reason enough to make that kind of investment in the community. The reality of public safety is a reason to invest, as well as ensuring the safety of our firefighters. And I don't know if anyone who's had an opportunity to see the fire station, but it really hasn't been updated since it was built. The kitchen, it definitely has a Brady Bunch look, but it also has a much older function. And in terms of everything we know and the demands on safety for our firefighters and protecting them and changing workforces, there have been many reasons that have come into play to look at updating the function of the fire station as well as the form of it. So I think we took a comprehensive look at what kind of changes need to be made. And obviously the process is still underway in looking at the design component, but there has been some we're well into it for sure. But it's looking at what meets the needs. Again, this one has met the needs for over 50 years, and we're looking at how are we going to meet the needs for the next 50 years. And I think when you talk infrastructure at any point, infrastructure right now is expensive, but infrastructure around 50 years always needs an investment. And when we look at what we really have gotten a lot of time out of the structure that exists, and we're looking at how to make sure we get that kind of time out of the next, I won't say next structure because it's a remodel more than it's not getting torn down, but we are looking at changes that need to be made to make it go for the next 50 years as well. But I think that when I take a tour of Station 1 and see, it's very clear what needs to be updated and why it needs to be updated to ensure that we have a safe environment for our firefighters and to ensure that they are able to have the equipment and materials that they need to ensure the safety of our community. And I know that our community has spoken very loudly with their millage support that public safety is important to the community, and having our own public safety is important to the community. So that does take an investment, and fortunately we're able to collectively come together and support that kind of investment. So as much as it's a big investment for the community, I think it's a worthwhile investment that supports every single resident in the community, as well as making sure that we have a safe environment for our firefighters. So I think it's an exciting investment, it's an important investment, but I also think that it is a flagship visual for Orchard Lake Road. So it will be nice. And I know in looking at the design, they incorporated a little park-like walkthrough area that will provide, people that it is a common walking space because it does connect the Kroger, let's say, that mall down to the high school. So people do walk through, and it will have a little bench and a sidewalk in front, which will maximize just the use of the area by the public, but we will also have a public safety asset that will be tremendous for the community for many years to come.
Well, it's going to be a great facility there, and there's plenty of detail already out in the public on this as well. If you want to learn more about Fire Station number 1, go ahead and watch back some of the recent West Bloomfield Township Board meetings, as well as the West Bloomfield Township Planning Commission meeting from October 14th. Those available on demand on CivicCenterTV.com, or our recent story about the renovations, where you'll hear a little bit from Captain Jeff Latkowski and a little bit about those special designs and community spaces from West Bloomfield Fire Chief Greg Flynn. In the meantime, November 4th is Election Day in Greater West Bloomfield. Clerk Binder, thank you for giving us more information.
Okay, thank you very much, Tyler. Much appreciated.
Early voting already underway at the West Bloomfield Township Public Library. That is the local early voting center for all 4 of the greater West Bloomfield communities. That's our show. I want to remind you that television that's close to home is always online on civiccentertv.com and across our social media. That's also where you'll find us on Tuesday morning as we celebrate the Heroes Appreciation Breakfast live at West Bloomfield Middle School. Join us for the full presentation and just beforehand where Thais Leverett and I will be providing some pre-coverage of the big event at West Bloomfield Middle School. Big thank you to our entire crew and to you as always for joining in. For our entire team at Civic Center TV, I'm Tyler Kieft. Thanks for tuning in to The Splash Live.